Good morning, friends. This morning I have to give a talk on the subject Sarada Devi, the Divine Mother. But I'll begin with a chant from our scriptures. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. May all be happy. May all be free from disease. May all see only goodness everywhere. And may no one suffer from any kind of misery. Om. Peace, peace, peace. May God grant us peace. Now that I have chanted, my duty is to give the talk. Hinduism is one of those religions which considers the idea of divine incarnation as a fact, not just truth, a fact. It is a fact that God comes down to earth in this age as in human form to revive spirituality. Whenever there is decline in spirituality, God incarnates on earth to revive that spirituality. And at this age we are fortunate to have two divine incarnations, Sri Ramakrishna and Sri Sarada Devi. Divine incarnations, as they are born on earth, most of the time they look like human beings because they come to help the human beings. It is the human beings who have the idea of spirituality, but when that idea of spirituality becomes tarnished, then there is a decline. And at that time, God incarnates in human form to revive their spirituality by serving these human beings. So Sri Sarada Devi is a divine incarnation. And the divine incarnations set examples. They have humility. They never play the role of a guru. They don't think that they're gurus. They are the teachers of all teachers, spiritual teachers. Still, they don't have the vanity of a teacher. That's what they are. They don't have vanity. And while on earth, they behave like other human beings, but they are extraordinary beings. Let us now talk about Sri Sarada Devi, a divine incarnation. She was born as a human being in a place called Jairambati, which is in India, eastern part of India. And her mother was Shama Sundari, and the father's name was Ramchandra Mukherjee. Her mother, Shama Sundari, was once sitting under a wood apple tree. You don't have such trees in this country. They will have them in countries like India. Wood apple tree. In Sanskrit they are called Villa Vrikshas. She was seated under a wood apple tree, and then she had a spiritual vision. She saw the Divine Mother, that is God as Mother, appearing to her as a small child. And the child came and hugged Shamasundari and said, "I will be your daughter," and entered into her body. And the vision was so superb, so spiritual, that Shamasundari Devi lost outer consciousness for a while. In other words, she had some kind of samadhi. So then a daughter was born to her. Her father, Ramachandra Mukherjee, also had some similar vision. So they waited for a divine daughter to be born. And the Sarada Devi was that divine daughter. Her life was extraordinary. As a young girl, she was married to Ramakrishna, who is a divine incarnation. In those days in India, child marriage was there. Why child marriage? When a child would be married, particularly a little girl, she would go to the in-laws' home and grow up there as their own child. And she would also feel comfortable there psychologically, being with her in-laws. They become her parents. Sri Ramakrishna was 24 years old at that time, and he was in Dakshineshwar village near Calcutta. She used to live in a temple complex founded by Rasmani Devi, Rani Rasmani. She was a very influential lady, and the British gave her the title Rani. Rani means queen. She had lots of property in many places, and she thought that she would build a temple complex. And in Hinduism, God is worshipped as father, as mother, as a child, and so on. All these attributes are given to God, God who is beyond gender and everything. But human beings with their finite minds, when they try to think of God, they project all those limitations on God. So God becomes a father, God becomes a mother. As I have said often, that is, it is like looking at the grey sky using some colored eyeglasses. A person who has a pair of red-colored eyeglasses, he looks at the grey sky and the grey sky will look reddish. Another one using a green pair of eyeglasses will see the same grey sky as green. The sky is not changing its color. All these colors are being projected on the sky. So also human minds project personalities on God. To think that God is very dear, they project the personality of their father or mother on God. Because father and mother, they are dear. Some even project the idea of a child on God. A motherly woman will do that. But they are all one and the same divinity. So, Sarada Devi was a divine incarnation. And in her childhood, we see so many extraordinary things happening. She would have the company of so many deities who would come and help her in doing things when she was a child. And I was talking about childhood marriage of India. She was married when she was 5 years old. And she was married to Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna, as I have told you, was a divine incarnation, but he had to work as a priest in the temple complex of Rani Rasamani. He used to worship at the main temple, that is a temple of Divine Mother Kali. And then he used to worship there. And then he would get the vision of the mother. The mother would talk to him, and he would enter into a state of communion with divinity. And he would not have outward consciousness at that time. So all these things started happening to him. And by seeing his conditions, the people around would not understand what was happening to this Ramakrishna. They thought maybe he is going insane. But he was having often different kinds of spiritual ecstasy. So then someone, as ordinary worldly people thought that if he is married now, if he gets married, then he will become normal. So that is the medicine. So he was sent back to his village, Kamarpukur. And then his relatives started looking for a bride for him. But he had already gained a bad name that he was a little crazy. So it was not easy to get a bride for him. But Sri Ramakrishna one day said to them, go to the village Jairambati. There is one Ramachandra Mukherjee. His daughter is labeled for me. And they went there and they agreed. And that daughter was no other than Sarada Devi. And she was 5 years old, while Sri Ramakrishna was 24 years old. And when she was 13 years old, she went to her husband's home in Kamarpukur. And then before that also she had gone once or twice. And then she would like to go and take a shower or a deep dip in a large man-made lake in Kamarpukur. Its name was Haldarpukur. It was a very large, like a lake, but that was man-made. And she would like to go to Haldarpukur, but in order to go there, she had to go through some neighborhoods, and she was shy by nature, so she thought, oh, how would she go there every day alone? And then strange things started happening. Some 8 girls of her age, they were also 13 or 14 years old. They suddenly came and said, we are going to Haldarpukur. Will you go there? Let us go together. That's how they said to her. And then she would go with them. There were 8 in number. 4 of them would walk ahead of her and 4 of them would walk behind her. And that she was no longer shy. That went on for a while. These were all deities who take the form of human beings and come and accompany her. Such things happen in the lives of divine incarnations. And eventually she had to go to Dakshineshwar near Calcutta, where her husband was living, and because she wanted to serve him. And Sri Ramakrishna used to live in a room in that temple complex. But he is no ordinary person. So he would look upon his wife as the Divine Mother. Once Sarada Devi asked him, how do you look upon him? And he said, he looked upon her as the Divine Mother, Kali. Their marriage was spiritual marriage. And much later, someone asked Sri Sarada Devi, how do you look upon Ramakrishna, your husband? She said, I look upon him as my child. So with these attitudes they were there. And she also knew Sri Ramakrishna to be a divine incarnation. So Sri Ramakrishna looked upon him as the Divine Mother Kali. Sarada Devi. And gradually, people around Dakshineshwar village in Calcutta, they came to recognize that Sri Ramakrishna was a divine incarnation. Some of them came to recognize. Because the supervisor of the temple complex was Mathur. He was the son-in-law of Rani Rasmani. He had developed great respect for Sri Ramakrishna. And he one day, there was many guests would come there. The guests were all either monks or nuns. They are not necessarily householders in the temple. And one nun came there. Her name was Bhairavi. She was a Bhairavi Brahmani. And she had studied the scriptures. And she came to see Sri Ramakrishna. And it is she who said that he is no ordinary person. He is a divine incarnation. He has all the signs and symptoms of a divine incarnation. Mathur, she asked Mathur to invite them, some scholars of the scriptures, to come and examine Ramakrishna. And Mathur was very influential, so he invited some great scholars of scriptures, and they came to the Dakshineshwar temple complex. And Sri Ramakrishna was seated there in the open porch of a temple. You may call it an audience hall. And the scholars, the pandits, they also came and examined him. They all gave the joint verdict that, judging by the signs and symptoms of this young man, that means Ramakrishna, he was a divine incarnation. And Sri Ramakrishna heard all that, but that made no difference in him. Because he already knew that he was a divine incarnation. So it was no news for him. So anyway, this is the story. And gradually that news spread out that Ramakrishna was a divine incarnation. Some people started looking upon him as a divine incarnation, and some would come to him to get some help if possible. And some of them later on became very famous, such as Narendra, he became Vivekananda, and a few other young men. According to Sri Ramakrishna, they were born free. They came to help Sri Ramakrishna spread out his spiritual message. And there was a great actor of the Calcutta stage at that time. He used to write also plays. He was a playwright also. His name was Girish Chandra Ghosh. So Girish Chandra Ghosh became attracted to Ramakrishna and accepted Ramakrishna as a divine incarnation. There is something interesting about Girish Chandra Ghosh. Girish Chandra Ghosh, when he was a young man, he suffered from cholera and he was about to die. At that time he had a spiritual vision. He saw a female deity come to him and give him a little sacred food. He said, "Eat this." And Girish Ghosh ate that in the dream. And when he woke up, he felt better, and then he got over that cholera. It was considered that he would die, but he didn't die. He remembered the face of that deity, female deity. Much later, many years later, after having come to know Ramakrishna, he got the chance to see Sri Sarada Devi. And when he saw Sarada Devi, he was amazed beyond description. He said, "Mother, you are here?" It is the same deity who had saved his life in that vision when he had been dying of cholera. And to him, Sri Sarada Devi said, "Yes, I am your mother. I am your true mother. not the wife of your Guru, Ramakrishna, but I am a true mother. This is the role she came to play. She had to play the role of compassionate mother of humankind. She had to personify the compassion of God, motherly compassion. So, by the time many people had come to know that Ramakrishna was a divine incarnation, Ramakrishna said to her, and she used to live in another room, which was in a music tower very close to the room where Sri Ramakrishna lived in the temple complex. One day, she was bringing some cooked food for Ramakrishna, and the plate of food was in her hand. Then a lady came to her and said, "Mother, please give me this plate, I will take this to Sri Ramakrishna." And she gave her the plate. But mother was walking behind her. And that lady came and placed the plate of food in front of Ramakrishna. And they would not eat from tables or anything. On the floor they would put, and there were rugs sitting on which they would eat food. And then that lady left. And the Holy Mother, Sarada Devi was also, she was present. And Sri Ramakrishna said to her, "Don't you know that I cannot touch any food which has been given to me by an impure person?" Unfortunately, that lady who had brought that food, her life was not very pure. Sri Ramakrishna came to display many things. One of those things was that one should not be impure. That's it. That's why he could not touch that food. Then he said to Sri Sarada Devi, "Don't you know the character of that woman? How can I eat this food which has been brought by her?" Then Sri Sarada Devi said to him, "Please eat this food. If somebody comes and calls me mother, I can never say no." That's why I gave that plate to her. And then Sri Ramakrishna was pleased and he ate the same food. That shows that the divine incarnation has come to play acting. And he was also pleased to see that the motherly nature of Sri Sarada Devi was being manifested more and more. Then Sri Ramakrishna one day said to Sarada Devi, "My time for departure has come. I was like a king in disguise trying to help the subjects. And now when the subjects come to know that I'm the king, then I cannot. That means my disguise is no longer working. Then I have to go back to my palace. So that means I have to depart from this world." Sri Sarada Devi said, "If you depart from this world, what shall I do?" Then Sri Ramakrishna said, "What I have done is but little. You have to do much more." Sri Ramakrishna came to teach everybody how to renounce worldly ideas to experience God. And also he came to teach the world the harmony of all faiths. All faiths are so many roads which go to the same divinity. So Sri Sarada Devi had to play the role of the compassionate Divine Mother. She used to say, I am the mother of the good, and also I am the mother of those who are not that good. There was one young man, his name was Gyan. He wanted to have spiritual instructions or from a spiritual teacher. In India we call it initiation, spiritual initiation. The teacher gives some holy words and the student has to chant it. Through such chanting of the holy words, the student eventually experiences divinity. So Gyan was living in a county called Sylhet, a few hundred miles away from Calcutta. But he knew one Swami of the Ramakrishna Order. So he came to him. He came to him some by train and then by walking. He didn't have that much money. And then that Swami said to him, that is, the person who can give you spiritual initiation is not here. She is in the village Jairambati. He meant Sri Sarada Devi to be the teacher. So Gyan went to Jairambati, walking all the way. It is about 80 miles from Calcutta. And then the mother accepted him and agreed to give him spiritual initiation. And at the time of initiation, she was giving him initiation in a room. There was a picture of Sri Ramakrishna on the wall. And she said to Gyan, he is your guru. Then Gyan said, no, you are my guru. I don't know him. Who that person is, I don't know. You are my guru. Then she said, no, I am not your guru. I am your mother. He said, you are not my mother. My mother lives in the county of Sylhet, so many 100 miles away. You are not my mother. Then the mother, Sri Sarada Devi said, look at me. And then Gyan saw that his mother was seated there in place of Sarada Devi. Sometimes the divine incarnations use their miraculous power a little bit. And here is an example. So anyway, then Gyan fell down flat and saluted the mother. This is the story of Gyan. Eventually Gyan became a monk of the Ramakrishna Order. Anyway. Sri Sarada Devi was the mother of all. She was compassion personified. Once a porter in a railway station, he is a poor man, he for some reason came to her and said that he needed some spiritual help. And then she gave him spiritual initiation too, that porter, out of compassion. And that was the time when the British ruled India, and some people who wanted freedom they would go out in processions and all, demanding that they needed freedom from British rule. And then the British would arrest some of them and put them in prison. And once one lady was put in prison. And in India, women were highly respected. And that hurt many Indians, including some who were monks of the Ramakrishna Order and devotees. They are talking about this injustice. And Sri Sarada Devi was present there. Then she said to them, "You see, the British are also my children." Don't talk like that about them. And so many people eventually became attracted, women attracted to Hinduism through the efforts of Swami Vivekananda. And some Western women came to India, and the mother accepted them as her daughters. Once a British lady came to her, and the mother, Sri Sarada Devi, was at that time living in Calcutta. And that British lady had heard of Sri Sarada Devi as a saintly person. And she came to her with a prayer. She said that her daughter, only daughter, was about to die. So she wanted Sri Sarada Devi to bless her. And then Sri Sarada Devi gave her a little sacred food which had been offered to God. And it said, "Give this food to her." And after eating that food, that daughter became cured. And that lady became a great follower of Sri Sarada Devi. And Sri Sarada Devi had such love for everybody. She knew that she was divine. Once she said to someone, pointing to her own body, "This body is divine." Divine incarnations sometimes reveal their divinity to a very chosen few. And she did that. "This body is divine," she said. She also said that I and Sri Ramakrishna, who is a divine incarnation, we are one and the same. And then she said to some people, "If a thorn pricks you, I feel that a sword has entered my heart." She was so compassionate. And he's in Jairambati, there were some cats, and those are stray cats, but they would get food given by the householders. And the Holy Mother used to give food to some cats. Once she had to leave Jairambati and go to Calcutta at the request of her devotees. Then she said to those who were in Jairambati, "Please make sure of giving food to these cats also, stray cats." They said, "Why? These are stray cats." Then the mother said, "I am their mother also. I am their mother also." She is the mother of all. not only human beings, but even animals also. And it is wonderful that he gave initiation to a few people who became monks of the Ramakrishna Order. And I got to, not all of them, but I got to know some of them, a few of them who had spiritual initiation from Sri Sarada Devi. They were wonderful people. One of my maternal uncles was a disciple of Sri Sarada Devi. He was very brilliant, and in those days he was the vice principal of a famous high school which was in our city, Shillong. And in those days there was a government high school, and in those days only the British would become principals and others were chosen from the Indian community. And he was very renowned, and he was very righteous also. And when he would sit down in his room and pray, tears would roll down his cheeks from the outer corners of his eyes whenever he would pray. So he was very advanced spiritually. And my guru, Swami Vishuddhananda, he was also a disciple of Sri Sarada Devi. He was love personified. Once, at that time, he was the vice president of our order. And he was visiting the city of Benares. And we have two centers there of the Ramakrishna Order there. And the larger center is a hospital center, which is a free hospital for the poor. And the Swami in charge was Swami Bhaskarananda. Swami Bhaskarananda has great respect for Swami Vishuddhananda. And so there was a young man who had joined the Ramakrishna Order there. But it seemed that he did not have the making of a monk. That's what Swami Bhaskarananda thought. So he came to Swami Vishuddhananda and to take his advice. He said, this young man is not fit to be a monk, it looks like. Should I ask him to leave? Then Swami Vishuddhananda said, no, don't. He was, as I said, he was compassion personified. He said, no, don't ask him to leave. We have come to the order out of whatever love we have for Sri Ramakrishna. And he also has come because he must have some love of Sri Ramakrishna, for Sri Ramakrishna. Allow him to stay. And that young man was allowed to stay. But after some time, he left on his own. And I saw Swami Vireshwaranandaji. He was also motherly. It is he who brought me from the Shillong center of the Ramakrishna Order to the headquarters of the Ramakrishna Order in Belur Math in Calcutta, near Calcutta. And he was at that time the General Secretary of the Order. And he had heard that I had been a government auditor before becoming a monk. That's why he wanted me to go to the headquarters. Because at that time, the government started giving many grants for the work, that charitable work which the Ramakrishna Order was doing, starting hospitals and running schools and colleges, and the government would give grants every year. And so the accounts had to be maintained. So that's why he thought that I would be helpful in examining those accounts and making and seeing that money is being spent properly. That's why I went to the headquarters. But Swami Bhaskarananda was like a mother to me, and without any vanity. It was a wonderful life. He had a wonderful life. Once he said to me, because he had something like some fever, flu or something, he was ill for a few days. Then he became better, and then he was working in the office, sitting at his desk. And then one Swami, who was in charge of a center in Calcutta, he had come to see him for some work. And then he heard that he had suffered from fever. Then he said to Swami Bhaskarananda, I have heard that you are ill. I am so sorry that I had to come to you to seek your advice. Then he said to him, how do you know that a monk is ill or well? And that Swami said, Maharaj, with folded hands, Maharaj, please tell me how to judge whether Swami is ill or well. Then Swami Bhaskarananda said, when you see that the monk is lying in bed, unable to lift his head from the pillow, then know that he is ill. But if you can sit up on bed, then know that he is well. So the monks should not have the luxury of talking about their illness or something. And I was present there, I overheard that conversation. Such was Bhaskarananda. And he was so humble. And there was one Swami named Purushatmananda. He was the head of a center of our order in Silchar, a town in then Assam. And then after the independence, so many things have happened in India that is no longer in Assam. But anyways, Swami Purushatmananda became ill. It was thought that he had cancer in his lungs and some other trouble he had. So he had to come from there to Calcutta, to the headquarters. And the headquarters sent him to the government hospital of Calcutta. And there he was. And he was a critical condition. And the doctors could not help him much. But in the room where he was, there were 3 or 4 other patients. And one day, he sat up, and as though he was talking to somebody, he said, he was seeing the Holy Mother, Sri Sarada Devi there, her guru, his guru. Then he said, Mother, you have come, so please wait a little, let me do something. Then he called the other patients who were there in that room and said, brothers, my time for departure has come. So goodbye, he said. The mother has come to take me. Then he lay down in bed and passed away peacefully. So before death, he saw. And there was also Swami Jagadananda, a great Swami of our order. Before his death, he started saying, Aham Brahmasmi, I am divinity. She was not talking about the Holy Mother, but I am divinity itself. Aham Brahmasmi. And so saying, he passed away. So why didn't the Holy Mother appear before him? Because she said that at the time of death, she or Sri Ramakrishna would be present before those who have been accepted by them as disciples. Well, the answer is that Sri Ramakrishna once pointed to Sri Sarada Devi and said, she is no ordinary person. She is Mother Sarada, Saraswati, the divine mothers of education. It is she who has come here to give spiritual knowledge to everybody. So Swami Jagadananda got the spiritual knowledge that everything is divinity. Now let me conclude with a message that the mother gave to a devotee. A devotee had come to her. Her mind was not at peace. Her mind was very disturbed. And so Sri Sarada Devi said to her, my child, if you want peace, don't see the defects of others. See your own defects only. And look upon the entire world as your family, as your own family. That is the way to find peace. So this is our last message. Now I conclude with a prayer to Mother. Salutation. Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Taya Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. Thank you all for your patience.